Today is Saturday, September 19th, 2020, and today I'm thinking about some of Jesus's words that are a little hard to hear the first time you read them. And first, I just want to preface this with before I started reading the Bible for myself and really learning who Jesus was through reading the Gospels, I had a false image of who Jesus was. And a big part of it is that most pastors, they don't really talk about Jesus's words too often. They're usually reading Pauline letters and harping over the same things over and over and over and talking about love all the time. And I think people should be really wary of anybody that is focusing on things that Jesus himself was not focusing on. And I'll just leave it at that for this video. I've talked about Paul in the past before, and many of you know my opinion on that. Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 through 28. Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciple came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. And so this is one of the things that it's pretty jarring the first time you read it. Wow, Jesus called this lady a dog who was just coming and asking for her daughter to be healed from the daughter was possessed, it sounds like. And this is from, there's this website, Got Answers, or Got Questions, I think, is what it's called. And a lot of times they have pretty good explanations. Not everything out there gets everything completely wrong when it comes to Christianity. So this is a pretty good explanation of what's going on here. At this point, Jesus explained his current ministry in a way that both the woman and the watching disciples could understand. At the time, his duty was to the people of Israel, not to the Gentiles. Recklessly, so I don't know if I agree with the reckless word here, but taking his attention from Israel in violation of his mission would be like a father taking food from his children in order to throw it to their pets. Jesus frequently tested people to prove their intentions, test the spirits, often through response questions or challenges. His response to the Canaanite woman is similar. In testing her, Jesus declined her request and explained that she had no legitimate expectation of his help. The woman, however, lived out of the principle Jesus himself taught in the parable of the persistent widow. Her response proved that she understood fully what Jesus was saying, yet had enough conviction to ask anyway. Jesus acknowledged her faith, calling it great. And yeah, I think that's a good explanation of what's going on here. Jesus did, this actually gets back into the Paul thing. Paul didn't listen to Jesus when Jesus said that they were to preach to the lost sheep of Israel and to not go and preach to the Gentiles. And so that's what's going on here. This is a woman who, it was not the time for Jesus to be preaching to these people in particular, and this lady came and wanted to be healed, and so he tested her, and through that test she showed great faith. And one way that I interpreted this is, like, let's just say that Jesus was here and said something like that to you. Would you really be that offended? Me personally, I thought about it like, well, what if Jesus said something to me insinuating that I was a dog in some way? I wouldn't really take offense to that. And yeah, I still would just be, I'm sorry, heal me. That's kind of what this lady is. She didn't take offense to it. She didn't, because I think when you take offense to something, there's some ego at play there. And so just the humility there, where if you know Jesus is the Messiah, is it really going to offend you that much if he says something to you like that? And so I like that part of this where the lady doesn't take any offense to it whatsoever. She just says, and she has such a brilliant response to it too, of going into the analogy and saying, yeah, you're not going to give food directly to a dog, but they'll eat the crumbs that dropped from the table. I love it. I think that this is a great part of the Bible. And yeah, just a good thing to think of. Happy messages, there's only so much that you can get out of a happy message. But when you read something that Jesus does or says that kind of makes you step back and think a little bit, I like those. So I thought that was a decent explanation of what was going on there. And here's another one that I think is hard for a lot of people to take. I'd say most people. So I've told this story about how, somebody asked me once what three things were most important to me. I'd say the number one cookie cutter answer that most people throw out when asked what are the most important things to you. People always want to say family. Family. That's like the top thing. And this is what Jesus told us about family. Luke chapter 14, verse 26. If any man come to me and hate not his father, and mother, and wife, and children, and brethren, and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And so it's a hard message for people to hear. It's a little easier for me when you have family circumstances that you don't necessarily like your family all that much. It doesn't sting as much as people who really love their family and everything about them. But it's not just your family and your wife and your children and yourself, your own life. And it's just showing you where your priorities need to be. God is number one over your own life, over your own family. And I think here too of how when there's a moment when people come to Jesus and they talk about Jesus's mom, they're like, Jesus, your mother, I don't know exactly the words used, but basically people tell Jesus that Mary, his mom, wants him, and Jesus's response is just like, what are you talking about? My mom. These are my mother is all the women here, and my brethren are all my sheep. And so just Jesus shows us that Jesus doesn't have a mom. And of course, Mary gave birth, but it's bigger than that. Our family is all of God's children. We're all one another's family. And there's more than just family. There's so much ego built into family. People get such an ego about their family, obsession with last names, and obsession with putting on, like, continuing your last name. You know how people are so obsessed with having a son so that they carry on a name. It's vanity, and that's not what our family is. So these are all important messages that Jesus told us about. So, yeah, I think I'll just leave it at this. I was going to read all of Luke chapter 14, but, maybe it's just something that you can go read on your own for some context. And just, this is a video talking about the things that Jesus told us that were hard to hear. I think that we shouldn't shun away from the things that Jesus told us that were hard to hear. So yeah, I'm not going to read chapter 14. I was going to, but you guys know how to read. I'll just end with one more verse that is kind of hard to read, but I think it has an important message. Luke chapter 9, verse 60. Jesus said unto him, let the dead bury their dead, but go thou and preach the kingdom of God. God comes first over everything. God bless everyone.